Good evening.
Just one moment. Just one moment. I am remaking the YouTube connection.
All right. Is it done?
It's done, Apurva. We
It's
are
done,
live.
right, Alan? Thank you, Alan. Good evening, everybody, and a very, very happy Women's Day to all of you. Thank you so much for joining us today for this final talk, which we had during this Women's Day week, as we called it. We had a series of online talks on issues concerning women on every aspect of their lives. And we were very happy that several women and men joined us on all these talks. And today we had a special tree trail at the Mahim Nature Park in Mumbai, also intended only for women. So we had these series of initiatives targeted at Women's Day, and we are happy that we got a really nice response. And we are very happy that we are going to be ending it with this really nice talk on women in archaeology. And this talk will be delivered by Disha Ahluwalia. Let me give you a very brief profile of her before I hand over the baton to her. Disha is an archaeologist who has specialized in field archaeology and ancient ceramics. She's currently pursuing her PhD in archaeology from the Maharaja Sayajirao University of Baroda, and her specialization is in landscape archaeology of the Ghaggar Basin in Rajasthan. Her work largely deals with the proto-historic period, and she has worked at major sites, including Binjore in Rajasthan, which is a small Harappan settlement, Sinoli, which was a Chalcolithic site in the Ganga Yamuna Doab, Barnawa, which is a multicultural site in the Ganga Yamuna Doab again, and in Rakhigadi, which is a Harappan settlement, as we all know, in Haryana. Other than fieldwork, Disha writes regular columns for the print. She is also curating a social media handle called Confessions of an Archaeologist, which is aimed at making archaeology accessible in the public domain. Highly interesting, Disha. Thank you so much for joining us today and agreeing to give this talk on women in archaeology, a fascinating topic by itself.
Yeah,
So over to you, Disha.
thank you.
All
Thank you
yours.
so much for, first of all, thinking of me to give this talk because, to be very honest, it really gave me an opportunity to understand how the role of women has sort of changed over the years in archaeology and also to understand the gaps that we have in terms of sort of to understand the role of women in India, especially in archaeology. And I will discuss that, soon. So I think I can share the screen now.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. So it's a very small, very short sort of an overview of women in archaeology through ages, and um, I have tried to um, how yeah. So I have sort of tried to sort of create a narrative around it, try and tell you how the role of women has changed over the period of time. And I'll also discuss as to what all is missing when we talk about the role of women in archaeology, especially in our country, in our context, in Indian context. So first of all, the role of women in archaeology, the beginning in India is slightly unknown. But largely, if we look at the beginning of women and the role of women in archaeology, it sort of goes back to colonial period, the Victorian era, where women they were part of this adventure who the adventure, it was more like, you have to understand that back when women started to participate in archaeology. Archaeology was more or less a treasure hunt. It was more or less looting of settlements. It was not as systematic and scientific as it is today. So the first women who ventured into archaeology were trailblazers. They were adventurers who really felt at home when they're away from it. And this very statement that you see in on your screens, I as an archaeologist centuries later, decades later, I too feel the same. When I am in field, when I am in trenches, when I am sitting in my canvas tents, digging deep trenches in dirt and dust, I feel at home. And I don't miss home, and my home is far away from the site. So, as archaeologists, be it men or women, we do tend to sort of find a home away from home, and until we don't do that, we actually can't be in the field, because there are a lot of challenges that comes with archaeology. And archaeology in general is very diverse. It's all about looking at the tangible evidence and trying to understand the intangible components of human past, trying to find a balance between the material remains and what it signifies in the ancient society, and what is the meaning and how they resonate with the past. It's a very complex discipline, and it has been a journey. If you look at the history of archaeology itself, it has come a long way from just being a discipline where antiquities were the main stay, they were the main objects. Now coming to sort of a time and a state, a status in archaeology where antiquities do play an important role, but the context is more important. So archaeology in general has come a long way, but how, whether or not women and inclusion in archaeology and the involvement in archaeology has changed or not, that's what we're going to be discussing today. Now, if a lot of people ask me as to what is the role of women in archaeology, and the answer is it's same as man, because archaeology as a discipline doesn't have any division or a sort of categorization in terms of its role, whether a man will do a certain thing or a woman will do a certain thing. As a discipline, it provides an equal opportunity for both a man and a woman to perform equal tasks. It is actually a society which and the people from our very own society who become part of this work, this discipline, who then further divides it for us, who tells us that a woman cannot go down in the deep trenches. A woman's role is more of a delicate nature, whereas a man can go in deep trenches, and a man can do this or a woman can't do this. But it's actually not true. As you can see in an image here, she is an archaeologist, and she is jumping into deep trenches. And this is what an archaeologist's job is. No matter what you're wearing, and even though you may feel that going into the deep trenches may not be very woman-like in some senses, or may not be to for a delicate job, or it's not very glamorous, you still have to do the job. So as an archaeologist, be it a man or a woman, we are everything. We are an excavator or explorer, we are site managers, we manage the site with a lot of, we have a team, a huge team which we have to manage. We are at times a draftsman. We draw our trends, we document our structures. We are also photographers, we are also storekeepers. So a man or a woman, irrespective of your gender, you have to be an archaeologist. An archaeologist's job is quite diverse. So as I've mentioned, that archaeology per se doesn't divide our roles, but society does, and that's what was the cause of this, a less representation of women in archaeology. That's the reason why we have very limited representation of women in archaeology. This very statement that you see here on the screen, over the course of last 150 years, a rigid power structure has been established in archaeology. Although men have controlled the power structure throughout the history of the discipline, women have always made a significant, if devalued, contribution to archaeology. This is such a, it's true, irrespective of where this book actually talks about women archaeologists in European context, in American context. But even in Indian context, if I look back, if I reflect on the statement, it stands true, because that's what has happened. Archaeology may not tell that a woman can't dig, but an archaeologist who a man will say a woman can't dig. And although there have been women who have participated in archaeological works, who have been in archaeology for a really long period of time, but do we see the reflection in popular discussion? Do we hear their names? Not even pictures. Do we hear their names in discussion when we're talking about archaeological discoveries? No, men are always the forefront, and it still stands today. It's not a battle of sexes, it's not a battle of gender, but that's the reality that we all have to sort of acknowledge, that the power structure, the society, the power structure that existed has sort of dictated archaeology as well. And women who have made headway were trailblazers. They were rigid, they were also very stern, they were feisty. They knew how to speak their mind, and they slowly and steadily paved the way for all of us. Um, So I will now sort of go through some figures, some women explorers, archaeologists across the globe, including some in India, who have really paved the way for the next generation of archaeologists like me to be in the field in a much better condition with much more ease than they have. So here you have an image of Gertrude Bell. She was not an archaeologist, but she was a traveler. She was an explorer, a photographer. She's very well renowned for her work that she has done in documenting, areas. Such as this very picture, she was a photographer, so she went and documented monuments, people, and she was actively participated in heritage conservation and state building as well. So this is very image which is quite famous, and she's also published a lot of books. This is from Mesopotamian excavation, where she has taken a she has clicked, so you can see all are men. In fact, even the dynamics of sexes have genders have sort of changed even on site. So you see a lot of men here, but slowly and steadily you will see that women have also start to participate in the excavation. The local women also have started to participate, and I will share anecdotes as I go forward in this talk. The next very important pioneer figure is Maud Cunnington. She got married at the age of 19, and her husband actually, Edward Benjamin Cunnington, his family was involved in archaeology and archaeological digs. So she got married to him with no interest in archaeology, but as with time she developed that interest in archaeology, and since the family was involved in the archaeological work, she started to participate as well, and she would write regularly for a magazine, and she would also write a lot of archaeological excavation reports, and that sort of ignited that curiosity in her, and she would accompany her husband to various excavations, be with him, and they together started excavating various Iron Age sites, and they even discover Woodhenge, which they believe was sort of earlier than the Stonehenge in UK. So she and her husband together. So here you also have to understand, sort of underline this, that Maud and her husband both were archaeologists, and because her husband was there, she was able to be part of the archaeological work. This is Woodhenge, and few other sites that they have explored and also excavated. Now, another very important figure is Tessa Wheeler. She married Mortimer Wheeler. She actually met him while she was studying at the university, and she played a very important role in creating Institute of Archaeology in London. And if you don't know, there's an Institute of Archaeology in London. There used to be an Institute of Archaeology in India, which both Wheeler has established. Today, it's known as Pandit Deendayal Upadhyay Institute of Archaeology. So she was actually a very important figure in the archaeological circles of the UK. She has excavated multiple sites, not just in the UK but also outside, and has accompanied Wheeler at many excavations. But unlike Maud, who got into archaeology because her husband and his family were in archaeology, she was already studying to become an archaeologist at that time, or studying history, and met Wheeler while she was doing so. So she had her independent existence before she married Wheeler. But unfortunately, if you read her biography, if you read a lot of work that has been done on her records, her diaries, you will see that many a times she too had to struggle because she was shadowed by her husband's popularity. Sir Mortimer Wheeler in India, also in across the world, is known as one of the most important archaeologists. So naturally, she also faced that brunt because her husband was very popular. So her achievements were quite faded out, or overshadowed, or pushed into the background because of Wheeler's presence. And and a lot of people don't know this, and that's why I've mentioned it here, that we say Wheeler is a father of Indian archaeology. He's the one who's given us the law of stratigraphy, excavation in square, in grid pattern. But we never say that Tessa and Mortimer together who have done it. But actually, it's true. It was Tessa and Mortimer Wheeler who, while they were working at one side, they were working and they perfected this system of stratigraphy, the law of stratigraphy, and also the grid, the perfect square grid pattern, which we even today we follow in archaeology. You can see here in the image on the right, bottom right, you can see that all men, and she is the only single female archaeologist standing in the trench right in the middle, which is a very powerful image. Another very important figure in global perspective is Kathleen Kenyon, and she was actually a student of Tessa and Mortimer Wheeler. She was trained by both of them, and she took forward the work done by both Mortimer Wheeler and Tessa in perfecting the law of stratigraphy. She has worked a long period of time. She has worked at Jerusalem, sites like Jericho. She has also excavated many Roman cities, and her love for archaeology came actually from her father. Her father was a director of British Museum, who later became the chairman of British School of Archaeology in Jerusalem. So basically, her love sort of came from her father, watching her father interacting with the ancient artifacts, and his work that he has done in museum, etc. So you can see her. She has written a lot of books. Her books are still very highly regarded. And one thing you must notice when we talk about women in archaeology are the clothes. And you will see that in Indian perspective as well. You see that you don't need a special attire to be a woman in the trenches. You can wear what you're wearing. If you remember, there was an image of a woman climbing down from a makeshift ladder into the trench. She was wearing a hat and a skirt. She was going into the trench. So, we usually say that our clothes sort of restrict us, but no, it's not true. Our clothes don't restrict us. Our passion and love for archaeology, or any discipline or any profession we are in, sort of makes way, it sort of paves way for us to move forward. But this is another image of Kathleen. You can see her, all men, and she's, I think, working um, uh, in Middle East somewhere. Now, another very important figure in archaeology, in world archaeology in European and the context of the UK, is Aileen Fox. She married Cyril Fox, and she's excavated a lot of Roman fortresses, and also she specialized in Iron Age. So she made a lot of important observations when it comes to Iron Age of the of UK, and also along with her husband, she excavated multiple sites. Anne is, to me, I empathize with Anne's story the most. If you have to ask me, her work is well documented. Her daughter has written a biography of her parents. So Anne and her husband both were archaeologists, and Anne's story was actually a story of of a lot of ups and downs. She and along with her husband, they both discovered the Norse settlement in Newfoundland, which was very important discovery even today. And she had worked at multiple sites. When she was excavating a particular site in 1960, 68, she was heading that excavation. People and their perspective of a woman leading the site really didn't go well with Anne. A lot of people started objecting to the findings. They started creating a lot of rumors and doubts. They started saying that Anne, just because she's a woman, her findings were amateur, and her findings were not of her excavation is not of a good quality, as compared to her husband. So eventually her husband was forced to take over uh, that very excavation as the leader, to sort of put the rumors to rest, put all the speculations to rest. This sort of made Anne really sad, and she was hopeless, because working in field in a patriarchal society is never easy, and when you have people constantly doubting your abilities, it makes matters really really worse. So it really affected her. She did manage to write the excavation report, after which she suffered a stroke, but she didn't give up. She kept on working at it. She worked. She studied the burials and textiles from Viking age, a trading site in Kwampang, which really produced an outstanding work, advancing our understanding in the women's role in burial practices. So this is where she found a silver lining, and she went ahead, and her story is something which I empathize the most. And she worked her entire life. She didn't let people's prejudice and their opinions really stop her. For me, her story is really, really close to my heart. And somebody wants to read, here's the book cover. You must go and read the story of Helga and Anne. Even today, they are both regarded as a pioneer to Norse archaeology. Now, coming to women archaeologists in India, when I was actually researching for a column, and also trying to read a bit more before giving this talk, I wanted to know more about, like, we know that women in UK and in America, we know the names of the women, the images. In India, we hardly know anything. We hardly know whether women were part of archaeological investigation in early 1800s, around the time Cunningham was marching all across the country following the records of Chinese travelers, or were women part of any of the John Marshall's excavations. We hardly know. Ironically, we hardly know anything. There's no biographical work done other than what Professor Neonjit Lahiri has done on M.N. Deshpande. We have no biographical sort of work done on any of the Indian archaeologists pre-independence. Post-independence is nothing, but even pre-independence. So, looking at women in archaeology, there is a gap in literature. There's a gap in research, and which has really sort of forced me to sort of look at it in a different way. Maybe this is where some of you can help us, or some of you, if you are interested, if any of your students out there want to do this, want to reconstruct the role of women in archaeology in India, do let me know, because I'm very very interested in taking this work forward. So as it's written here, this is the quote I've taken from a very important sites catering or dedicated to women in archaeology across the world. And let me tell you, across the world, but there was only one women archaeologist in the entire website. It says we are here, and we always have. The only most famous female figure in archaeology is Debala Mitra. If you ask any archaeology history student who is working in ancient India, you will immediately come across her name. She was the first director general of female director general of archaeologists, female archaeologist to head Archaeological Survey of India. After her, there have been other female DGs, but they are all IS officers. So she was the only female archaeologist who rose to the rank of a Director General. Her work is so diverse. She has excavated in Nepal sites like Tirola, sites in Nepal. She has explored Nepal. She has even explored Bangladesh. She has worked extensively on Buddhist monuments and try and her domain was so her work still stands the test of time. Her work is pioneer. So you can see in this image at the center, she's at a side and she's wearing a sari and she's looking deep into the trenches. And as I've said, that our clothes really do not determine that we as archaeologists, wherever we work, we don't have to change our attire to be in archaeology or dig. We can dig irrespective of what we are wearing. So she is known for wearing saris all the time. She did not change her attire. She did not change her preferences. And it's quite inspiring to see because, when I started in archaeology, I was told that I need to wear shirts and pants. I have nothing against, I wear them all the time. But, um, naturally, very organically, I went to my cotton kurtas and pajamas and at times salwar kameez because I understood that for the environment and the conditions that in the harsh conditions where we work, maybe other the quick dry material may not work that well. Cotton is always the best. So sort of a very learning. It's a learning lesson that we see a lot of women in different parts of the world who worked, but there has been they didn't try to dress like a man to be in a man's world. Uh, uh, Katie Dalal, she is mother of Dr. Kurush Dalal, but she, for me, personally, she is a role model. I'll tell you why, because my study area and her study area are same. She explored the region when the region was not very well populated, and the region is Ghaggar Hakra. Ghaggar, on the banks of River Ghaggar. She took forward the work done by Amalanda Ghosh. A. Ghosh in 1950s explored the dry bed of Ghaggar. This was the first exploration after the independence of India, and he documented a lot of early Harappan settlements, which were not recorded by Oral Stein, who explored the region before him. Katie took that work one step forward. She not just explored because Ghosh died before he even published any of his material. So Katie took up that task of not just publishing Ghosh's unpublished material, rechecking his the sites that he explored, but also excavating four sites which were of early Harappan, pre-Harappan origin. Ghosh, who has explored and excavated sites like Soti, she took it further and she excavated sites to understand the early occupation of Gagar Hakra. She also participated in a number of excavations, including the site of Kalibangan. So for me, I carry her PhD thesis everywhere, every time I go into the field. In fact, in the very first introductory chapter, she mentions that the area was so deserted. Anyway, there were sand dunes and there were bandits everywhere, and so that she would sleep with sort of a knife under her pillow. Whenever I had gone into the field alone, I would always think of what Katie would have done and how she managed to explore that region multiple times before she finished her work. Vidula Jaiswal, she is a very well-known archaeologist, but in archaeological circles, especially in by a lot of men, a lot of men don't recognize her work. I've seen this, and I have no shame in admitting it. She has worked in not just in prehistoric sites, but she's also worked in other historical settlement. She's a very powerful a person with a very powerful perspectives and opinions, and she stands her ground. She works actively even today, based out of Banaras. Vibha Tripathi, I remember talking to Professor Tripathi when she was teaching me many, many years ago. Since my work also revolves around painted grey, where her books are, of course, the landmark and an important. They are like the Bible for anybody who's studying in the post-Harappan period, especially the PGW period. I asked her, like, how did she manage to work because she did undertake a lot of extensive field work. She once mentioned that she would go into the field irrespective of her marital status or after embracing motherhood. So these two things, the marriage and motherhood, which for a lot of women uh, seems to be the end of the career or the hurdles or anything, for a lot of, especially in the field archaeology, in the area that we work, we have these pioneering women who've shown us that uh, you can continue if you have the will and the power and strength to sort of push forward and move forward in the career. Sheila Mishra, again, she has over 30 to 40 years of experience in Paleolithic prehistoric sites in India. And just like many others, she would always jump into the trenches wearing a sari. There is an image of her. I didn't put it here, but there is a very powerful image to me of her. She's in a deep trench wearing a sari and sports shoes. So she is again one of the most important female archaeologists of the country. Shanti Pappu, she needs no introduction, but she is known for excavation at Athirapakkam. She's also a public archaeologist with her Sharma Heritage Center, where she not just continues with archaeological work, but also have continued to engage with public and bridge the gap between people and archaeology, especially educating school children on archaeology. Dr. Arvind Manjul, she's the director of ASI and she has worked at sites like Tolavira and Maner. Since I've mentioned, most of the people apart from Dibala Mitra were from universities. I thought of adding her name because she continued to be in one of the top positions in ASI, and despite being in ASI, continued to work in field at not just sites like Dholavira, Maner, but Sanoli, including in the list of excavations. She, along with her husband, again has worked at many sites, and she has raised children on site. And I had the privilege of working with her at many sites. So you can see here, working at sites, it's not. You don't need, it doesn't have to be glamorous, it can be what it is. It just, you need to have that passion and love for your discipline. Now, women archaeologists of today, a lot of people asked me how are the situation, what is the situation of working in the field today? What are the limitation of working in the field today? Now, I don't know what were the limitations women had before me, but I really know what the limitations we have as we are working even today in 2025. Um, a lot of many times I meet students or especially girls are extremely passionate about archaeology but have reservations in dealing with harsh climatic conditions or going into deep trenches. This very trench that you see in front of you is a very deep trench, and to go into the trench and to work with all women team. You can see here even the people, the locals who work with us, they were in black and white pictures. You'll see all men. Here you will start to see a lot of women also who will again participate in excavations. It's these are just images, of excavation work. So you can see that irrespective of harsh climatic conditions, which get really unbearable at times, uh, the persistence remain the same from past to present, and I hope it remains the same into the and goes into the future as well. And strength and persistence is there in women who follow us decades down the road. Now, coming to a very important aspect of when we talk about women in archaeology is the feminist gaze, and it's very important to have that feminist gaze. I'll tell you when I recently, and the reason why I put this image is because it's Arvind Manjul and her son at an excavation site. When I got married 2 years ago, and I went to Rakhi Gadi, people over there, the ones who take care of the sites and who take care of our trenches, they uh, they decided not to have a tent for me. They assumed that because I got married, I will not be joining them. I will not be participating at for at the excavation. So they did not keep any trench or any tent for me to stay. And when I reached, there was no. I had to really stay at a hotel, which was about 100 kilometers away. But the thing what was more shocking was after a few days, I met a senior archaeologist, and they were all joking around that how they didn't have a tent for me, and I'm working with this team for past 10 years, and it was just a joke. He said, the senior archaeologist said that, oh, it's let her sort of work for another 2 3 years. Once she has a child, she may not work, so let her play in the trenches. So it doesn't matter if she's married, but once she has a child, she may not. And this is why I put this image, is because people still, even 2025, 2024, say the same thing. And women have to keep on proving, keep on uh, proving them wrong, keep on working hard, keep on projecting. And another important aspect of feminist gaze is I've kept here is, when we talk about women in archaeology, we need to understand the women who dig, which I've mentioned elaborately, and there are also women we dig. Women, the imagery that we dig, like the dancing girl and other figurines and sculptures that we dig. So we need to have that feminist gaze, and the classical example is the dancing girl. It was known as a dancing girl by both McKay and Marshall, who Marshall called her a notch girl. And today we know that she is neither a notch girl nor she is dancing. It was a colonial perspective. It's sort of very Eurocentric, and Eurocentric to the tone of Indian society, and does not reflect anything to the archaeology, but it's just a reflection on the patriarchal and imperialistic ideologies of the investigators of that time. Many archaeologists even today, including Shri Ratnagar, are they agree that the dancing girl, is actually not dancing, because there is no resemblance to any of the dancing pose. She's simply standing with a hand on her hip and a knee a little bended. Because if we have to look at the flexibility of Harappan art, we'll see there are a lot of Harappan artists were quite well versed with human anatomy, and they knew how to depict human figure in many ways. And if we have to see that that bronze figurine is of a dancing girl, we also have a dancing man then, to put that in perspective. Uh, Talking about feminist gaze, I really want to address this because this is a meme which is being circulated all the time on every social media platform. I Multiple people tag me on this post. People who are not archaeologists tag me on this post and say, "Why are there so many female archaeologists?" And the answer to this question is because women love digging up the past. Now, this may be a joke on women and how women dig up the past, but it doesn't have to do anything with archaeology, because let me tell you, there are not many female archaeologists. If we talk about the representation, if you go and make a list of the topmost archaeologists of this country, you will only and only find men. You will not find a lot of women. And there is absolute no reference of women. If we talk about Professor Bibi Lal, you have no parallel, same contemporary women in the limelight at all. So the moment people say, oh, there are so many female archaeologists, the very question irritates me. The very question uh, makes my blood boil, because there are not many women female archaeologists. There are a lot of struggle as women archaeologists we face in the field, and to make a joke out of it seems quite insensitive to me personally, and I don't really care for it. I don't care if it's a joke and I need to laugh. This doesn't make me laugh, because to be in the field, we have to fight not just the discipline and the rigid structure it has, the male centric structure. We also have to fight, or we have to sort of deal with our parents as families and societies, and without their support it's very difficult to sustain. And once you're married, you have to again start that circle again and again. So it's not been easy, it's not easy to sustain in the field. I have read this somewhere and I thought I'll share this. It was about an obsidian blade that was stored in the rafters of their of houses, and a person said that most of the archaeologists didn't know what it was, and they had their own assumptions, especially the men. But the moment a mother looked at these findings, she said, yeah, they used to store their knives in the rafters to keep them out of reach of the children. So, there could be a very simplistic explanation to something we archaeologists make really big, and during our interpretation. And inclusion of women and a feminist gaze or a female perspective, especially when dealing with day-to-day routine, can really, really help us. When we talk about pottery, for instance, we also need to understand that women also have played an important role in making those pots, which we largely don't talk about. And I think I forgot to add that image here. But even today, when you in Potter's house, women actually are the ones who are decorating the pots. They are doing 80% of the work that they're doing. The rest 20, which includes the heavy lifting, is done by the man. Now, this is by Adil Fox. It's sort of a meme. So a person is asking if there are any bodies, and she says yes, busy bodies. So it's quite a funny meme. Now coming to the end, what is the future of women in archaeology today? If we introspect from past to present, today the field is so diverse. You don't have to be just field archaeologist. I agree that I have only shown you images of field archaeologists, and there was not much time till him. The scope of this lecture is sort of very limited, but there are a lot of you have Aarti Deshpande from Deccan College. You have Veena Mushrif. She's again working at she's at Deccan College. These people are not just archaeologists, but they're scientists in field. So your as a role today is it diversify. You don't just have to be a field archaeologist. You can be a zoologist, botanist, or anyone who has done any other studied any allied sciences, a heritage management manager, or a conservator. So archaeology is not just limited the way it was in the past. It is diversified. Therefore, the opportunities have also diversified. So archaeology is not just a study of the past, and it is also about future. So women have always been an integral part of both, and therefore their future is quite safe in archaeology. I also want to point out that long back when in Institute of Archaeology there used to be hardly one or two women. I remember Dr. Arvind Manjul telling me that there were hardly any women in institute at that point in 80s and 90s. Today there are majority of students who get enrolled in archaeology are now girls. I think it also has to do with the dynamics of dynamics that have changed in terms of monetary benefits. Archaeology is not a very lucrative field when it comes to earning your living, which has shunned a lot of men, because we live in patriarchy and we patriarchal society, and men have to be the primary breadwinner of the family. Boys are moving away from archaeology, but at the same time, and I have to say this as well, a lot of women, girls also inquire about the monetary benefits, because a lot of the future is where men and women both are working together. They both are earning. That's what our reality is at the moment. So therefore the future of archaeology for women and men will actually lies in how archaeology diversify and become a more lucrative discipline. And I want to end this with the image of people who we work with, and you can see they are both men and women working in the trenches with us. Thank you so much for being patient and listening to me.
Thank you, ma'am. It was indeed a very insightful lecture. Now, I think we can have questions.
Yeah, thank you so much.
The last picture was from which site?
Sorry?
The last picture there.
Yeah, Rakhiganj.
Okay, thank you.
May I ask a question, please? I'm Dr. Sakarika Damle.
Hello. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So, a very nice talk, very interesting, well presented. Yes.
thank you.
I am not I'm not a knowledgeable person in this field, but just out of interest, I've been reading things. Since earlier days, there was no distinction between different branches of archaeology, right? I mean, so I came to read about Mary Leakey, okay, and her work. So I think once whatever are the success stories that you have, then you get labeled as a paleoanthropologist or something like that. But I think everybody to begin with is an archaeologist. Am I wrong? I mean,
Yeah, with Mary Leakey, she's actually, by the time they were working in that area, and they were dealing with fossils, the divisions were quite prominent. So there was a division between, back then, the division between archaeologists and paleontologists, right, in late or mid 1800s itself. So by the time Mary Leakey started working in Olduvai Gorge and other places in Africa, her work and her scholarship really could, we could sort of create that distinction that she was a paleontologist but not an archaeologist. But you are absolutely right in pointing out that we all are sort of digging sites, so our basic understanding, our basic structure remains the same. It's just that we divide because she dealt with fossils which are way back in antiquity, like millions of years in antiquity, whereas archaeology tends to deal with little later time periods. But somewhere in prehistory it sort of merges. So you are absolutely right in that way.
thank you, Disha. Thank you so much.
Thank you. There is a question. Should I take
Yes, ma'am, you can take that question on the chat box. Yes.
yeah, I don't know how it would come out, but I'm generally curious about how they cope up with periods and pregnancies during excavation, asking for basic, because even today many jobs in the, yeah, so just like most any other discipline or wherever we are in archaeology also, it's been little difficult to be very vocal about periods and pregnancies. And I remember when I started field work, I was also very scared to be very vocal about my periods, tell people that I have periods. And I had this because we had this conditioning. The moment we show or we think we're showing weakness, we assume that the people around us will not give us jobs because because we had these taboos, or we consider periods or pregnancies as a weakness, which they are not. It takes time to get rid of that conditioning that we have socially. For me as well, it was same. I used to feel that if I'm going to be very vocal about periods, if I'm going to ask for a leave, people will not allow me to come to the site, because I've heard men coming to the field and saying, I want we want students to work, but we only want boys because boys are less maintenance, like as if boys don't need basic necessities. Like, it's just outrageous to feel that that boys don't need the decency of having, they don't need to have a toilet. It's assumed that men can go out there and open and use nature as their toilet bowl. It's ridiculous to even assume that, but that's how it's been. I have heard people saying that they don't want girls because girls are responsibilities. So I didn't want to tell people that I have periods and I need off. So I would march through. I would brave it out. I would just keep a brave face. There has been instances where I couldn't, where I had to tell my male supervisor that, look, I have periods and I am not able to um be there, not able to function the way I usually would. But I had to most of the times I had to keep quiet, most of the times. And today, I usually don't feel, also when I have periods, I don't feel a lot of discomfort. Even if I do, I've sort of gotten into the habit of ignoring it. But when I am in charge of the site, I make sure that the girls can come to me and say, ma'am, I have my periods, can we take a day off? That's what we can do when moving forward. I also make both boys and girls in my at my side sit, and we discuss about certain things. It's not just about telling women to be, girls to be vocal. It's also about introducing boys to these things, and also sensitizing both ways. So it's a very complex thing, but sort of I think hopefully when we move forward, things will get better and better. Your next question is on, and also the maternity leave. If you're working in a government or in a university setup, you will get maternity leave. But then again, I said that people have this perspective, the moment you have a child, embrace motherhood, you will not be allowed to come to the site, and you will not eventually be in the field. They would just brush it off by saying, अरे दिशा खेलना है, इसको खेलने दो 2-3 साल, 2-3 साल बाद इसके बच्चे हो जाएंगे तो वो साइड पे नहीं आएगी. Which is why I have kept that image of Dr. Arvind Manjul with her son at site, because you can do it, and these are the women of uh, you know pushes us forward and enables us to go forward. Your next question is on the salary gap. I don't think there is a gap, because anyways we don't get money, even if we are women or not. We just don't enough money. There is not enough money even for a boy or a girl. It doesn't matter. So I don't think there is any salary or any salary gap or anything. Um, how safe it is, particularly for women. The safety actually, it depends on where we're working. It's not safe. I won't say that it's absolutely safe and it's 100% safe. Because it can be dangerous. We have to be really careful. Which is why, I don't know how Katie Dalal really she went on an exploration alone, because I was always very scared to go on exploration alone. I always would ask a friend of mine to accompany me at various explorations for my PhD field work. So it is not safe, because we live in a society which is largely not safe for women. So even if you're an archaeologist or a police woman, or you are in military, it's anyways not safe for women. Um, yeah. Are there any other questions?
One very silly question, if I may ask.
No question is silly, yeah, but you can ask.
See, some of us are lay people, like we've sort of studied something else and done something else in life, and now we are learning archaeology, basics of archaeology.
Yeah.
So, what role do you see for us going ahead? Or no role at all? It's just another pastime. Is that the way we take it?
For archaeology as a pastime,
Yes, please. Because we, like, for instance, I am an MSc product too. I did pharmacy way back.
okay,
So yeah. So now now that I'm retired, I loved history, so I'm getting back to history with archaeology.
okay. It is
So
not.
so
I mean,
what do you see the future as? Is we'll sort of be looked down upon as non-professionals, or how does it work?
for future, I feel, see, archaeology is changing. I I wish there were more changes in archaeology as a discipline as a whole, in totality. I For women in archaeology, or anyone in archaeology, the future really depends on how well we monetize archaeology, how well we take archaeology forward, uh, and not just let it die. Because, see, a lot of our senior archaeologists have let it die in terms of not diversifying it fast enough or soon enough. They have not, you need to sort of move ahead with time, right? You need to go ahead with time, you need to diversify, which has not happened. You need to market or discipline and able to create jobs. So if there are no jobs, the discipline will die. So my worry is not about whether women or man can survive in archaeology. My worry today is that whether archaeology will survive 10 or 20 years down the line, because we are not doing enough to give archaeologists who have jobs, archaeologists who have degrees, proper jobs. So if we are not creating jobs, we have actually done disservice to the discipline. Which is true. We don't have jobs. University departments of archaeology are dying out. There are no research is not being conducted. You look at the condition of MSU Baroda, which is my department. there's no permanent employment at all. Everybody's on contract except for two. So you see, even with ASI, how much can you expect? Our state archaeologists are not diversifying. They're not doing much. So you need to have. We have to reach to a point where there will be a change. When and where, I don't know. It's very difficult. But the future of archaeology and women in archaeology largely depends on if we are able to create jobs. Nobody wants to live, just on passion. Passion doesn't feed or fill our stomachs. Money does. Money buys food, so money is an important thing because for us it's not a hobby; it's a profession.
Tried
Or else,
approaching
if it
private
doesn't,
foundations or something?
sorry,
Like, have you tried approaching the rich private
there are no.
foundations like the Shiv Nadar Foundation and stuff like that?
Yeah, there are, but they see archaeology as a discipline needs to, or people who have created these terms and conditions needs to sort of diversify. You can't really have much work. Private players can't have a lot of involvement because there are a lot of restrictions. So even Shiv Nadar, there is a department, but it's just one university. How many of us actually graduate with an archaeology degree? We need to really see that. And even then, their archaeology department is not that big. They're still working towards it. Like Ashoka is still putting creating an archaeology research center. So work is going on. Private universities are coming up, but it's a slow process. But that's not going to be enough because see, ASI is the biggest organization. We need to have other organizations which come up, which sole purpose is to cater to archaeology and archaeology alone. There has to be some other way. We have to really think out of the box.
Ma'am, there's one question from
Yeah.
Anamika. Like she's raised her hand for a long time. We'll take her question and then take the chat questions.
Okay. Yeah.
Anamika, ma'am, you can ask your question.
Hi, yes, thank you so much. Hi, Disha, am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible.
Hi, I follow you on Instagram, so it's a huge pleasure to hear you talk today. Thank
Thank you.
and two questions, okay? Uh, so, uh, I really, really like your take on archaeology and I follow it. So, one thing which stood out to me, the way you talked about how you tackle all the problems and everything in the site or in the trench and the patriarchal assumptions and the kind of moral judgment people do. I have a question which is there any particular assignment or job which you lost out only because or majorly because of your gender? Can you remember any situation?
No, I have not. I tell you why I have not because I had to really create an alter ego where I would stop thinking that I'm a woman.
Okay.
I have stayed in the field for 9 months and I have an unbearable conditions alone with a lot of men because I knew that if I even utter any word or any sort of complaint about discomfort, I may not get the next job. So I have in early years actually sort of created an alter ego where I would not consider, or I would have this sort of, I personify or project is the right term. I project this masculine energy around me in the field. I have not, I have not, but I have known people who have. I have known
Uh,
people who.
Thank you for your refreshing honesty. I exactly know what you are saying. I probably have done the same in my area of work. I do understand, but this also comes at a personal sacrifice level and personal. It is not easy to push yourself also to live this altered egoed life for long.
Yeah,
But you have done that. I'm sure that was the only way out for you or the best option at that point of time.
yeah,
Uh, if
yeah,
you see back now, it's a follow up question on that, although I have a
yeah.
completely different question also. If you look back at that point of time when you did that, and if you needed to do the same thing today, would you do it similarly or differently? I'm guessing that that happened quite early in your career at some point of time,
Yeah.
and you have some years of experience now. How would you handle it differently, or would it be the same?
We still have to project. We still have
Okay.
to have a very like I because if you're not stern, because women are always expected to be submissive. I have
Yeah.
met many boys, even younger than me, students who don't like me being stern because they expect that my gender actually is all about being calm, quiet, or प्यार से समझाना. But a man shouts, it's okay. Because I have seen a lot of our senior archaeologists shouts and they are very, very stern, very strict, and people tremble the moment they see them walking. But they are then labeled as brave men or, all of that. And I have been labeled very early on as somebody who's always who's angry. But I am happy that that happened because then people understood the value of my work and not to take me for granted. Today, if I have to do the same, I would do it. I will still have to project a bit, but I tell you honestly, very later in life, that sort of projection really got onto me mentally, where I would really get because see, I had to isolate myself.
Yes, that's the point. Yes.
I had to isolate, I have to create this bubble around me if I'm working for 6 months in a field where I have a lot of men who are working with me who are like, who are setting up the camps. They're from ASI, they're not archaeologists, but they are there because they have to manage a camp. I have to be good to them and I have to maintain that relationship, but I have to still isolate. So, with students as well. So, I would go to the field in the morning and come back in the evening, take up a briefing in the after I freshen up, and then I go after dinner, I just go back into my tent. And that's it. So I had to really create that bubble around me because I had to sort of I don't know. I still don't know where because people don't know how to draw a line. I may draw a line, but others
Yeah. I
they don't know
understand
how to.
completely.
Yeah, so they
I
don't know how to
come.
draw a line. So I have to create that bubble around me, and that really started to catch up. I could feel. I don't know. At the moment I turned 30, I don't know. I started to feel that, sort of. I would get very sad if I would not say it. I would still act very stern and all of that, but internally I would feel it. But then it was a process. I understood that this is a process and one have to go through it. Yeah.
Thank you. You are exceptionally refreshingly honest, and thank you for sharing so much of your personal process and journey. I just wanted to understand that a little bit. I have a completely different question about the dancing girl. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Is there a new name for the dancing girl? Can there be a new name? I just feel it's so wrong even each time I utter the word dancing girl. It is
Absolutely. I hate it.
I hate it, but there is no other way. I mean, at least I have not come across any other new name, new nomenclature, new way of addressing it. Have you? So, if you could
Um,
just talk
so
about it a little bit.
I had written a paper on this. The slides that I've shown you was one from my presentations. And one of the questions that I had was like the one of the even today one of the hurdles that I have faced is this very thing. If she's not dancing, then who is she? You know, if she is not a dancing girl, then what should and naming is a different story, but how do we place her in the archaeological context? How do we place her in the Harappan world? And for me, if, because there is a terracotta potsherd which also has a graffiti of a dancing girl, same figure and standing in the same posture, just an outline. And there is also an unfinished dancing sort of this figurine, bronze figurine found at one of the Harappan sites, which to me indicates that she was a big important figure because this potsherd was found in Rajasthan and dancing girl is found on the Indus river system. So the popularity of this particular person who was depicted in the figurine is known. to the people of Harappan civilization. And but what to call her is a very difficult task. I don't think I have an answer to that right now. Somebody just said mother. I don't think I will call it a mother because she looks like a fairly young person. Because mother goddess, if you look at the anatomy of the mother goddesses of Harappan context, they are much more mature. Their figure is much more prominent. The anatomy suggests that they are for the fertility purpose. But the opposite prism to it. So the dancing girl was a very Western, imperialistic, centric sort of a opinion. The right wing or the right sort of suggests that she's Parvati, which I in the paper have also argued that that's not true. We really need to find a parallel and alternative to it, which we haven't. But for now, we can sort of call her Harappan bronze girl or something like that, but not a dancing girl.
Absolutely, completely agree. I'll try to use that nomenclature from now on. Uh,
Yeah.
uh, I have one small follow-up question. The pottery sherd and the other dancing girl unfinished one, or the probably the broken one. Which are the sites, or where can we see the visuals of
Um,
those?
the portrait is from Birana. I
Okay.
think it's online. If you can Google it, you will find it. The dancing girl was found. I need to check from one of the Harappan cities. I'll check. It's in my paper, so I can get back to you with that. I think it's Harappa. If no, it's more.
Mm,
It's one of the sites which are around Harappa. It's northern province. Like I'll have to check. But it's a
uh,
very crude figurine. It's in. I didn't show that, but it's very very crude figurine. It's not well made and
uh,
probably was discarded.
can we have a copy of your paper, or is it in the public domain for
I
us to
haven't
look at?
posted in academia, but I am about to, so I'll post that and I will share it on the socials if that's
Okay.
all right. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you. There is a
Ma'am,
question.
there are questions on the chat box. Renuka Devaya asks, what opportunities do amateur archaeologists who are in their 50s have to get practical experience? That's her
Uh,
question.
Unfortunately, we don't have any system where we interact or include amateur archaeologists. We don't have that. Um, Unfortunately, we don't even have a volunteers program which exists in the UK and other parts of Europe, where people who are interested in archaeology, irrespective of their age, can and who are not archaeologists or have a degree in archaeology can work. We don't have that system. We don't even allow our bachelor students to excavate sites, so let alone that. So sadly, we don't. I'm hoping that one day we will address this issue. But you can always sort of visit sites. You can visit excavations. May not be able to excavate, but you can always see or observe how the excavation takes place.
Also, there's a question by Kathan, earlier question. So it's more general, I feel. Taking up humanities in school, let alone archaeology, do girls also get the same pressure for competitive exams like UPSC? Asked because the usual greedy, misogynist encouragement is for to become a teacher, that she would come home by afternoon and can do chores along with
I
income.
mean,
So
I
that's
think
his question.
doing household chores, no matter even if you are president or a prime minister, you will have to come back and you have to do your chores. I mean, that's something that we really need to change. And I won't say that women stop doing chores, because if they won't do, who will? I think we'll have to start teaching our boys to do little bit of that as well, and that's where the beginning will take place. What you was asking is a very very important question. When I told my family that I want to do archaeology, my parents were they're okay with it. They never objected. But my cousin, she said, you know what, one of my friends did archaeology and now she's teaching in Bluebell School. And to me, I don't take offense. I mean, I didn't understand because teaching is a very, I want to teach. That's what my future goal is. But the way she said it was that, you know, you were going to get degree in archaeology, but you're going to end up teaching in a school, you know, sort of project saying, you know, keep sort of suggesting that teaching is such a derogatory thing. But I ignored her completely because that's not true. And I went ahead. Teaching, e- even if you want to teach and if you're a good teacher, if you love teaching, you should, even if with archaeology degree, I mean, I think teaching should be equally, teaching involves passion and love for teaching, just like archaeology does. uh, but for the money, you asking, do girls also get the same pressure? Yes, we get the same pressure to do, to take up UPSC, to take up other competitive exams, and to sort of earn, go and earn a living. That's what I get from a lot of girls who message me, call me, talk to me, saying that you know, parents want them to be in a settled profession and not in a profession which is not settled, both in terms of money and also in terms of you know, the work that we do. Uh, so it is there. I have also seen a lot of women give up field archaeology after they got married. Girls of my age who have given up field archaeology completely after they got married because you know, how can they leave their husbands, how can they leave their homes? But you know, if I have given you examples of women who have, I'm sure, fought patriarchy and misogyny, and I have sort of ignored it. Not only not fight, but ignoring. Let me tell you, ignoring misogyny and patriarchy is equal to fighting. So they must have also done that. But your question is very, very important. That's the truth. Eh, There's another question, I think. Comment that is removing. I was also reading today. There's a comment on Kathleen's achievements, and there is a library named after her. I also feel that the moment a woman is has achieved something, she's then praised by many, and this is an example of it. But the question and the point here is, how do we what the process has been like? And I'm very sure the process has been quite difficult. And that is where we need to change a bit, so that we let more girls sort of have a smooth um, uh, evolution, or sort of they smoothly move ahead in this career. Are there more questions?
I think we are done for from the
Okay,
chat box
great.
here.
Yeah.
But if there are any questions, the participants can unmute themselves and ask.
Hmm.
And if there are none, we can end the session. But I just need to take a few photograph like screenshots. If everyone is okay in switching on their video, then I can take that. Um, yeah, it would be nice to see smiling faces. So it would be nice if you could switch on your video. Yes. So I'll take a picture at the count of three. So hope everyone is, yeah, switched on their camera. Yeah. Just a minute. Yeah. One, two, three. Yeah, just a minute. Keep smiling. One, two, three. Another one, I feel, yeah. Uh,
I got a couple of screenshots, Nidhini.
okay, yeah, thank you. I guess my phone just stopped
Yeah,
working for a minute. Sorry.
Yeah.
Thank
Um,
you.
thank you so much,
thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Ma'am, your voice.
actually ignored. A long back, somebody was taking uh, was was doing a podcast, and that person said that, you know, if I'm going to talk about your women in archaeology as a topic, it'll be too controversial or it'll be too sensitive, that he said. But thank you so much for being too sensitive and let me talk about this.
Thank you, ma'am.
And I'm very proud to see an MSU person speak with such confidence and eloquence and do such good work. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you so much. Thank
So
you.
I probably graduated before you were born. 87, 86,
Oh,
87 alumni, yes, pharmacy department.
yeah, that was born a few years later.
Yeah, that's history for you, but
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
for joining.
Should I
Bye.
leave the thing? Yeah?
Yeah, yeah, ma'am. No
Okay.
problem. Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Yeah, bye.